In this episode of Getting Geeky with Game Relief, I sit down with Oz from Privateer Press to talk all about Level 7 Omega Protocol, the board game, 2nd edition. Plus, he answers the question we all knew we didn't have. What's the difference between a designer and a game developer? So hang on until after these brief messages of these great games that are on Kickstarter and sponsoring Getting Geeky with Game Relief for us to bring this to you. Then hang on until after this great interview as me and Oz sit down to talk about all of that, to find out some great games that are on our Kickstarter Corner. This episode of Getting Geeky with Game Relief is proudly being powered by The Language of Magic. The Language of Magic is a deck-building card game for 1 to 4 players inspired by the works of Richard Garriott that just barely launched yesterday. Something you should know about this. The fact is that this was inspired by Ultima Online and that there's a huge number of combinations of words into spells. Richard Garriott has even given the game his blessing. Don't know who that is? Don't feel bad, I didn't either. He is the creator of the Ultima games. He owned Origin, the company who made those games, and he now has Shroud of the Avatar running. A really cool game about the language that goes into Magic. You should definitely check out this Kickstarter that just barely launched. Get this? Yesterday, that's right. The Language of Magic just launched yesterday. It's a short campaign. It's going for the next 12 days, so you better get in on the fun of this one. It goes through Sunday, the 4th of November. I would watch our Kickstarter video and then scroll down to see everything that's great about this great game. My favorite thing would have to be the box. The picture going down doesn't do it justice. The video, watch the video. Anyways, go ahead and check out The Language of Magic on Kickstarter. This episode of Getting Geeky with Game Relief is proudly being powered by Purple Aether Games' Rodent Rangers, Small Heroes Big Adventures. It's a family-friendly RPG based on classic cartoons of mousy adventures, or inspired by, such as Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, The Great Mouse Detective, just those awesome mouse movies from back in the day. If you want to go ahead and have family-friendly RPG games based on such, you should definitely check out Rodent Rangers, Small Heroes Big Adventures on Kickstarter for a short time. It goes through this Thursday, the 25th of October. This episode of Getting Geeky with Game Relief is also proudly being powered by Table Breakers, super heavy solid metal poly dice set. Table Breakers are extra large, extra heavy metal polyhedral RPG dice set for D&D, Dungeons & Dragons, Call of Cthulhu, and tabletop games. You name it, you can use these dice for it. Table Breakers is dangerously hefty. The classic metal poly dice set with a touch of luxury. Bigger, heavier, and my favorite, dangerous. Also, Christmas delivery on these, so definitely jump in and check this out, as Table Breakers is on Kickstarter through Tuesday, the 6th of November. Don't want to miss out on these dangerous dice. This episode of Getting Geeky with Game Relief is also proudly being powered by Crypto Cartel. Will the Crypto Cartel get you, or will you earn the most cryptocurrency on the black market? Find out as you play this tabletop card game where opponents compete to earn the most cryptocurrency on the black market. If nothing else, I would definitely come over and check out Andy's video on his Kickstarter page, as it is awesome. Also, you can go back and listen as I sat down to talk to Andy all about Crypto Cartel, I believe in a couple episodes ago on Wednesday. So definitely check that out. If you like what you see or hear, definitely back Crypto Cartel on the Kickstarter through the 12th of November. This episode of Getting Geeky with Game Relief is also proudly being powered by Fossil Find, a domino-based board game. That's right, it's a domino-based board game that uses custom double 12 dominoes as game pieces. These dominoes are hefty, and it's a fun roll-move game. You have through Sunday the 18th of November to check out Fossil Find, a domino-based board game on Kickstarter.
Getting Geeky with Gamer Leaf, the podcast in which one man strives to level up his geekhood and helping you do the same, one battle at a time. Now, let's get geeky with Gamer Leaf.
Nefarious conspiracies conceal the government's collaboration deep within an underground research facility with an unspeakable alien menace. Officially, the top-secret military base does not exist. There is no record of it, no blueprints, no photographs, no credible accounts. Rumors persist, but no one has ever found it, and those who have dared to look have disappeared. Their greatest weapon is fear. Yours is an assault rifle, now overrun with swarms of monstrous genetic creations led by the nefarious alien overseers. The underground facility of Septerra Bravo is the epicenter of an unfathomable government conspiracy, one that must be kept secret at all costs. To cover up the truth, the shadowy agency in charge of the operation has initiated Omega Protocol, dispatching an elite team of commandos to retake Septerra Bravo and eradicate all evidence of the sinister creatures within. But the threat these creatures and their alien overlords pose may be far greater than anyone can possibly imagine.
Did that sound familiar to you guys? It didn't to me neither, but this is a story or the narrative of Level 7 Omega Protocol board game 2nd edition that's currently on Kickstarter for a little bit longer from Privateer Press. And tonight we're lucky enough to have on the creator and mastermind behind this great game. Is that correct? Is that where you fit in line with Level 7 Omega Protocol, the board game, Oz?
Mm-hmm. I am the designer and lead developer on the game.
Awesome. So what's the difference between designer and lead developer?
Oh, this is one of my favorite questions. So designers usually come up with all the core concepts, and then developers usually playtest them and make them as polished and as fun as they can possibly be. Often at companies, the designer and the developer are different. Like Magic the Gathering cards, they get designed by someone and then handed off and developed separately. But at smaller companies like Privateer Press, it's often the same person.
Oh, okay, so that's pretty cool. Now, before we get into that whole process and everything that's great about Level 7 Omega Protocol, let's rewind a little bit if we could. We don't have to go back too terribly far, of course, unless you were born into tabletop board games. But how did you get started in playing tabletop board games and whatnot, Oz?
Well, I wasn't quite born into it, but I have been doing it most of my life. I grew up in the 80s, so we had access to like Sorry and Risk and Monopoly and that kind of stuff. But we played those kind of games all the time as a kid. And then I discovered miniatures gaming in around high school in the 90s. And then all of the expansion of Eurogaming and the American board game market expanding when it happened in like the early 2000s. And before I worked at Privateer Press, I worked at Steve Jackson Games as the art director and game developer and print buyer and a bunch of other stuff, working on Munchkin Quest and Revolution and Nanook and a bunch of their other games.
Okay, so you've been doing this for quite some time. So I imagine you get, if you're not playtesting games, you probably get to play quite a bit to see what's out there in the field. Do you currently have a favorite game, Oz?
Well, my favorite genre of game is social deduction, and there's quite a few really good games like that out there. Recently, I haven't played a lot of new ones in that category, but some of my favorites are things like Shadowhunters, which is a Z-Man game designed by I believe, Japanese company, and I don't even know if it's in print still, but it's a really fun game about trying to figure out who's on your team and who's not on your team, and everything is secret. But Battlestar Galactica and Shadows over Brimstone, and even like smaller games like Coup and stuff like that to a certain extent fall in that category.
Awesome. Yeah, I like them too. What would be one thing you would do to enhance maybe the genre, or you said Shadowhunter was the name of it?
Yeah, Shadowhunters is a great, really fast little game where everyone gets a secret identity, and there are good guys and bad guys and neutral characters. So the bad guys are things like vampires and werewolves, and the good guys are monster hunters. And no one knows who's on whose team, and you walk around in the woods, basically abstractly, stabbing each other, and eventually figure out who each other is and teams try to kill each other, while the neutral players each have their own victory condition. So it does a whole lot of interesting stuff and plays really fast and plays with something like up to 10 players.
Well, that sounds pretty cool. So being a designer and all, what would be one thing you would do to enhance Shadowhunters?
It had one expansion. I believe the designer quit working for the company, so they're not planning on doing anything else with it. But there's really no limit to how many characters you could add to that game, because each character only has one primary power. So there's a lot of design space open still in that game to adding all kinds of new monsters and new hunters and new neutral characters.
Cool beans. That's awesome. Now, word on the street is you guys have a new project or game that's currently on Kickstarter. What can you tell us about Level 7 Omega Protocol board game, the second edition?
So it came out originally in 2013, and we're running a really short Kickstarter, only about 2 weeks. It closes on Halloween. And it is a one versus many dungeon crawl game. So one player plays the bad guys, we call it the Overseer, and then 1 to 5 players play the Commandos, which are the heroes. And it's different from some other dungeon crawl type board games on the market because it's a very modern sci-fi game. It doesn't have spaceships and laser guns, but it also doesn't have swords and bows and arrows and orcs and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I was going to say that when I saw it, a lot of the dungeon crawls I see are set in fantasy, and I thought that was cool with it being in sci-fi.
Yeah, we created 3 games in the Level 7 series, and they're all modern UFO conspiracy games. Escape was the first one, and you were a victim running in the dark in like a haunted house type game. And then Omega Protocol is the second one, which is a dungeon crawl. And then the third one was Invasion, which was a big semi-cooperative defend the Earth against a big alien invasion that was a new kind of alien that hadn't been introduced in the first 2 games. So this one is the most popular one, and it's been out of print for a little while, so we're bringing it back and updating a couple of things about it, improving a couple of things about it. It has a really interesting... I did design it, so I don't like to praise the game too much, but other people have told me this, so I can say it without too much shame. It has a really interesting mechanic that the action points of the heroes are given over to the bad guy as his fuel for doing stuff. So the more things the heroes do, the more things the bad guy can do. And it's a cycle. So every time a turn starts, all the good guys give their tokens from last turn to the bad guy, create new tokens. The bad guy spends the ones from last turn and then gets more later. And it really connects the heroes and the villain in what they're doing.
So does anybody ever do less action so the bad guy can't do so much?
Yes, that kind of thing happens. For example, an attack costs you 2 tokens, so you have to gain 2 tokens to do it. And if you miss your attack, but you still want to kill the thing you're shooting at, you have to do it again, which gets 2 more tokens. So obviously, that's bad. You don't want to make extra fuel for the bad guy. So often, if one hero struggles and doesn't completely do a mission, somebody else has to decide if they're going to do less things because of those free points they're giving to the bad guy, or if they're going to try to do more stuff, which could be dangerous. But often you'll have one hero that just kind of moves a couple of times and doesn't do anything dangerous to increase the fuel of the bad guy.
Awesome. And so it's a co-op with the good guys against the bad guys. Is that right, kind of? Yes.
There are, in the core game, there are 5 commando characters you can play, and each of them can be built in a variety of ways. There's a team leader. He's the guy that's in charge. He also helps all the other commandos fight better. But there's a heavy weapons guy and a recon guy and a rifleman who can have little robots or be the medic or that kind of stuff. And then there's always, no matter how many players you have on the good guy side, always an overseer player running the bad guys.
Well, that's pretty cool. Yeah, somebody gets to run the bad guys. That's awesome. Now, per se, me and you were to sit down to play Level 7 Omega Protocol board game, what's our turn going to look? Per se, you're the bad guy and I'm the good guy. What do our turns look like?
So everything starts with the commandos. There's first a planning phase where the commandos can talk amongst themselves to determine what they're going to do for their turn. And the team leader has initiative cards, and he gets to pick the turn order of the heroes. So if you have 2 heroes disagreeing about who's going to open a door versus who's going to run through the door and shoot the bad guys, then the team leader gets to say, well, you're better at opening doors, you go first. You're going to get to 1. So that planning phase happens, and that's also after the first turn where the heroes give all their adrenaline tokens to the bad guys. And then the heroes get to take their turns. So a turn is moving your commando around, shooting his gun, opening doors, all those kind of things. You can do those actions in any order you want because each one of them costs adrenaline. And during the planning phase, you have picked a stance, which is like running or kneeling down to shoot better or that kind of thing. And that determines how many tokens you can make. So if you're running, you might only get 4 tokens because you can't attack very often, but you're going to move faster and that kind of stuff. And then after all the commandos have taken their turns, it's the Overseer's turn. He has what's called a dashboard, which is a collection of tiles in front of them that have different abilities. Some of them create bad guys. Some of them make aliens fight better or run faster or that kind of stuff. And he spends his adrenaline tokens that he's gotten from the heroes to both spawn bad guys and activate the bad guys. And so he'll go through and spawn things and then move all of his figures around the board and attack with them. And then at the end of his turn, it goes back to the beginning, another planning phase, and that's when the heroes give all their adrenaline tokens to him. So the cycle goes like that throughout the game. And importantly, at one point in the game, there's a thing called a crisis point, which is the only time the heroes can die. Heroes can get beat up and fall down, a lot like a video game. They lay there on the ground until another hero picks them up. But at the crisis point, which usually happens around the time you find the objective in the mission, then the heroes can die for real. So it ups the danger level quite a bit.
Well, that sounds pretty cool. Now, how many bad guys can the bad guy spawn, I guess?
So there are 3 main types of bad guys in the core game. There are clones, which are little goblin type dudes. There's melee ones and gun ones, and they're not very dangerous unless they come in groups. And there are 10 rogue clones, which are the melee ones, and 8 warrior clones, which are the gun ones in the game. So there can be quite a few of these little guys running all over the board. Then there are hybrids, which are creatures that are part alien and part human. There's guys with big guns. There's big, scary hunter guys. And then there's rejects, which are experiments that aren't quite functional, but they work well enough to fight. They're like fast zombies, kind of. And there's only a few of each of those miniatures in the game, so they're the bigger, more threatening bad guys. And then there's the Gen, which is the alien race, the full-blooded alien race. And there are handlers, which are the people that herd the smaller monsters around and make them fight better. And then there's Dr. Kronos, who's the main villain, who you don't see as a figure until the end of the game, but he's the main overarching storyline villain of all 3 games.
Okay, and I could pull, if I was a bad guy, I could pull out and use all of those characters depending on if I'm able to spawn them?
Yes. Each of the missions, there are 9 in the game. The first mission starts out pretty simple, only has clones in it, and the heroes are kind of learning in that mission, and it's not very challenging. But then as the missions unfold, the Overseer gets access to more and more bad guys, and his dashboard grows, and his powers grow, and it gets more dangerous and more difficult for the heroes.
Oh, wow. Yeah, sounds pretty cool. Where'd the inspiration for this great game come from, Oz?
So Matt Wilson, who owns Privateer Press and is also our chief creative officer, he came up with the level 7 setting based on his love for modern UFO conspiracy theory and wanting to do a horror story kind of thing inside of that. So before I worked at the company back in 2011, he came up with the idea of it, and they started thinking about making Level 7 Escape, the first game, and I got hired, brought on partially to make these games, but also to do other things to the company. And so a lot of it was established based on the core setting, and then as we developed it farther out and finished the first game and then started working on Omega Protocol represents the aliens going from collaborating with the humans and being scientists primarily to fighting with the humans and also being warriors. So we came up with a lot of stuff for this game that was alien technology for guns and psychic attacks and all those kind of things. But at its core, it's based off what a lot of people think is really going on with the world with UFO theories. Like it starts around Roswell, and there's secret bases out in the desert, much like people think there really are. And people get abducted by the aliens, but they're also being abducted by the government because they're working together with the aliens to try and help the aliens out, but also get technology from the aliens. So that's the biggest inspiration for it is like all those shows you watch on History Channel about aliens walking around where people think it's real.
Oh, okay, really cool. So that's awesome. Now, during play testing, was there ever anything you had to scrap because it just wouldn't work?
So originally, we had a great big giant idea for the game. We knew it was a dungeon crawl. We knew there were going to be heroes and villains. And our first plan was to have the story be the human heroes come in, beat up the aliens, get all the way to the end of their story, and they win. And then you flipped it, and it was going to be there were alien heroes, and you followed their story of them fighting to escape against human soldiers. So we were going to put in basically twice as many components and have a bunch of human bad guys for the aliens to fight, just like we have alien bad guys for the humans to fight. But building that game and cramming both those games, because it was kind of two separate games at that point, into one box was going to be both expensive and very, very time consuming. So after just a few months of thinking about that, we decided to mostly focus on the human heroes and make all the aliens bad guys and not try to make a great big gigantic game that would let you play both sides of the story.
Oh, okay. So that's awesome. And it sounds like it's pretty gigantic, at least before you put this reprint on Kickstarter. It sounds like people were selling them aftermarket for $300, it sounds like.
Yeah, the game's been out of print for a little while, and it got lots and lots of good reviews back in 2014 and 13 when it was first out. It's been very popular on Board Game Geek, and for a little while, it was one of the most popular dungeon crawl sci-fi type games on the market. It went out of print for various reasons, and we decided to try and bring it back, but only if what the demand we had heard, because we kept getting emails from people asking if it was ever going to go back in print, but that might be the same couple of people emailing often. So we decided to do a Kickstarter to see if there was enough demand to bring it back.
And I imagine you got less than the 1,771 emails that of the backers that are currently there.
Yeah. But yeah, it is funded. It funded in 20 hours, so it is going to happen. And right now we're working on what exactly is the final steps of updating and expanding and rebalancing and all those small things to do make it a second edition of the game.
Cool, yeah. What all has changed since the first edition?
So the game was experimental in a lot of ways, like the adrenaline system and some of those things were things that games had never tried before. And a lot of those things people really, really, really liked. Well, we tried an experimental line of sight system that was counting spaces on the grid for line of sight instead of trying to draw imaginary straight lines. And we did that for a lot of good reasons, but it didn't really ever function 100% in the understanding of the players. A lot of people were confused by it and that kind of stuff. So that's the main thing we're overhauling in the second edition. We're going to do a line of sight system that's a little bit more straightforward, involving drawing imaginary lines instead of trying to count spaces on the board so that people don't have to draw imaginary lines or get out a string or something like that. The other great big giant improvement we're doing is back in 2013, the factory we used, they were learning a lot of stuff at the same time as we were about plastic production, and the sculpts are really good for the game, but the plastic quality in that first version was a little bit soft. So some of the guys came out a little bendy, some of their bases came out a little wavy, and at that point, that was the best that factory could do, and we were already too deep in the process to change factories. But we've experimented with that factory in the past, in the last year or so, and they've improved their process a lot. So the plastic in this new edition is going to be much, much stiffer, but still use the exact same molds from before. So that's the two major improvements.
Yeah, so that's good. So even somebody who got the old edition might want to upgrade to the new edition, you think?
Well, the new edition is going to involve a lot of errata and that kind of stuff. So even if people are completely satisfied with the plastic miniatures in the first edition, there are still things in the second edition that are improved in small ways. It's not a lot. It's still the same game. You're not going to have to learn brand new systems. We're not changing anything in a major way, except line of sight. But also, there's on the Kickstarter, there's a backer level that's $20, and it's just some brand new cool stuff. If you already own the core game and you don't want to buy the expansion or the core game brand new, and that level is going to also get a printout of the rulebook. They're going to get a physical rulebook. We're going to print extras and throw them in. So if there's people that own the original game and they don't necessarily want to buy a whole new set for some small improvements, we're going to give them the rulebook, which is the major change that we're doing to the edition.
Oh, okay, that's pretty cool. And it looks like you said earlier, back in 2013, you had some reviews and whatnot. It looks like Tom Vassell, it was one of his top 10 games of 2013. Was there a lot of reviewers back then at that time? I know they've grown. They keep growing.
Well, there weren't as many people with like YouTube channels and that kind of stuff. Tom and a few other people were really at the forefront of kind of what the review side of the board game hobby has turned into. But yeah, we had numerous reviewers, but a lot of them were bloggers and that kind of stuff. They weren't as podcasty and as in depth with, especially like Twitch didn't exist back then to a certain extent in the same way it does now. So there wasn't a lot of people playing games on the internet and reviewing them in videos and that kind of stuff. But yeah, Tom did put it on the top 10 the year it came out, or the Dice Tower in general put it on the top 10, and it was very high on his list, and Sam, his co-host, liked it a lot too.
Okay, that's pretty cool. So if anybody follows them, I imagine they probably have a video somewhere or another.
Yeah, I went back and watched their old video from fall of 2013 about how much they liked it. And then they mentioned it on a few of their top 10 list type shows that they did that year.
Well, that's pretty cool. Now, when it comes to Level 7 Omega Protocol board game, the second edition, what makes this game pop, especially with all the other great games on Kickstarter? What makes it pop or stand out as one my audience should go check out and then back if they like what they see? Oz?
So the main thing the game has, and this is from a lot of reviews and comments I've seen on Board Game Geek and other places like that, that relationship between the resources the commandos make and the way the overseer spends them, very few other games have done that. There have been a few. I didn't know about, there was one or two older games that did something similar to that, and I didn't really know about them before I made this game. And a few other games have done other ideas like that. But the connection between what the heroes are doing and what the bad guy is capable of doing is the thing that most people latch onto as their favorite thing and the most interesting thing they think about the game. One of the other elements of it is it's not like a fantasy dungeon game where you go in and you have a really bad sword and horrible armor and you open a treasure chest and you find super awesome armor and a super powerful sword. In this game, you're playing military commandos that have been trained and prepared to do this job. So before the game starts, you build your character the way you want. If you're the heavy weapons guy, you can take compensation for how shaky your gun is to make it shoot better, or you can take napalm grenades, or you can take other upgrades like that. And like I mentioned earlier, the rifleman on the team can take drones, like he has a machine gun drone, and he has a little floating, annoying taunter drone to make the enemies not hit his friends as easy. Or he can take a med pack and a shotgun and all that kind of stuff. So you build out your hero to be the coolest version of your hero that you want to play before, and you don't have to dig around in treasure chests and hope you find a really good sword halfway through the mission.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, that sounds like a really cool game, and I especially like the Kickstarter video, as I keep talking about on the show. I can't wait for the Level 7 Omega Protocol movie. Will there be one of those?
So Matt made a short film back in 2013 or 2012 maybe, that was a little like 5-minute short with some people in some costumes about aliens and people running in the dark and pass bags on people's faces. And we did create the 3 games kind of like a movie trilogy, but there's no word on any official Hollywood type Level 7 movie action right now.
Okay, well, I guess we'll have to wait. Hopefully we don't have to wait too long. But anyways, we will be waiting for, in the meantime, we'll be waiting for Level 7 Omega Protocol, the board games. If somebody backs it and likes what they see and they go ahead and back it, when would they anticipate getting their copy so they can start playing again?
So we're saying that our fulfillment date will be June or so. Things can change depending on production. Everybody who understands Kickstarter has seen Kickstarters who go, 2 years long or sometimes fulfill faster. Now, this is mostly a reprint of the original game. We have all this work done. We're just changing some stuff and editing some things and working with the factory that's already done the game once. So we don't foresee any major hiccups. So we think that June fulfillment date is really strong, and we may even get it out a little faster than that.
Okay, that's awesome. And this is, it looks like, if I'm looking at the page right, this is you guys' second game on Kickstarter, but not a second game period. Is that right?
Yes, we kickstarted the Widower's Wood board game, which was set in our Iron Kingdoms, our steampunk fantasy setting. We did that one a while ago, but that was the second game in a series of those games. And we did the 3 Level 7 games, and we've done numerous small card games and board games. And then on the miniatures gaming side, we've had War Machine and Hordes now for 15 years.
Okay, so they just didn't have Kickstarter when you guys started.
Yeah, we did most of the stuff we've ever done the old-fashioned way.
And will you be coming back to Kickstarter with anything after this, do you think?
It's a possibility, but we're not talking about anything official right now.
Okay.
But we'll give people plenty of warning if we do have another Kickstarter project in the near future.
So if they do want to find out about official things that you talk about in the future, minus coming there to stalk you in your hometown, how would they go about doing that, Oz?
So we're on all kinds of social media and stuff. YouTube, we have our channels called Privateer Press Prime. We're on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and all that kind of stuff. We also have an insider on the homepage of our website at privateerpress.com, where we put out little news articles and show previews of miniatures that are coming out and give you behind the scenes looks at stuff. So there's a lot of ways to follow us and get our information. We have newsletters and that kind of stuff too you can sign up for on our website.
Okay, and if you get me the links, I'll go ahead and make sure that I put everything in the show notes so people can go ahead and follow along with that. Any final parting words on why somebody should go stop what they're doing right now and go check out Level 7 Omega Protocol, the board game, the 2nd edition?
It's already backed. It's fully funded. We know it's going to happen. And not to toot my own horn too much, but it is a really, really interesting game that does things that other games don't do. And it's a lot of fun. You can watch on, like I said, our Privateer Press Prime YouTube channel. You can see us watching or playing it the last 2 weeks. On Tuesday this week and on Tuesday the week before, I sat down as the overseer and ran 4 other staff members of the company through a game of it. And so if you're not completely sold, you can go to YouTube and watch us play the game. Both games took around 2 hours, which is pretty average for a game when there's a couple people that don't know how to play that well and a couple people that do know how to play that well. And so you can get an inside look on how the game works and what it's like and make a decision that way.
Okay, and like I said, we'll go ahead and leave all the links in the show notes, and people better hurry and go ahead and jump over there. If somebody's listening after the fact, after Halloween, do you think there'll be an option for them to pre-order like some of these other Kickstarters, like if they don't find the episode until later on?
I'm not sure about the specifics of any of that stuff afterwards, but if they're following us and tracking what we're saying on social media and stuff, we'll announce any kind of after the fact backer kit type late jump on opportunities then.
Okay, awesome. Well, we don't want to keep you all night, but we really appreciate you coming on Getting Geeky with Game Relief with us tonight, Oz, to talk all about Level 7 Omega Protocol board game, the 2nd edition.
Yeah, thanks. It was fun.
Yeah, no problem.
What is this place? What is it doing here in the Leaves computer? Oh, it's Kickstarter Corner with the Leaves.
Well, if you liked what you heard in that interview, definitely go check that great game out on Kickstarter for a short time. You know another one that's on Kickstarter for a short time? Builders. The building deck building game. They've reached their funding goal, and there's still a little bit over 24 hours at the time of this recording for you to back this great game, as it ends on the project Wednesday, the 24th of October at 4:58 a.m., so I wouldn't dilly-dally. Anyways, Builders is a deck builder where you're trying to build the tallest and most valuable skyscrapers. You can now always go back and listen as I sat down with one of the creators to talk all about it, or you can definitely just go ahead and check out the Kickstarter page, as it'll be there for a little while longer. Awesome game from the sounds of it. Did you catch our episode yesterday? You didn't? Well, go back. We'll wait for you while you pause this. Welcome back to Getting Geeky with Game Relief. What did you think? I love sitting down with Dane to talk all about Cosmic Mirror and whatnot. Well, Cosmic Mirror Core Rulebook is back with fantasy, sci-fi, and modern fantasy. If you didn't hear the interview, I don't know why you wouldn't. But this Cosmic Mirror Core Rulebook is the core rules needed to play in future Cosmic Mirror games, settings, sci-fi, fantasy, and modern fantasy. There's only a week left to go, and if you caught on the interview, there's a way for 3 lucky backers of this great game at the $5 level to get an extra book. So if you want to find out more about that, Go back and listen to my interview as I sat down with Dane to talk all about it in our last episode. This project goes through Tuesday, the 30th of October. So, you got a week to go. But don't dilly-dally, go check out Cosmic Mirror Core Rulebook Fantasy, Sci-Fi, and Modern Fantasy on the Kickstarters near you. We'll leave links in the show notes like we always do, but go ahead and check it out. You can search it too. But it helps if you click the links on our show notes. Crafty Lupine Publishing has brought us Gordian Layers Portal Bound. It's a 2 to 4 player tactical deck drafting card game of war and intrigue. They had me as we had the interview, and there's still 8 days for you to get in on the fun of this one as it goes through Wednesday the 31st of October, Halloween in fact. So if you want a fun game with lots of cool mechanics, go ahead and check out Gordian Layers Portal Bound on the Kickstarters. Another one that's new, maybe new to you, is Petrichor, Honeybee expansion and reprint. It's a sweet buzzing expansion to Petrichor and a reprint of the base game. They've got 10 days to go. This is coming to you from Mighty Boards. So, in Petrichor, you're a cloud, and you're a force of weather. You are the wind on the leaves, the raindrops on the field, and now you have a honeybee to help you. They're proud to present the second expansion called Honeybee. This got the seal of approval from the Dice Tower, and the art is amazing. So if you want to find out how you can get this great game, click on over through that link on our show notes and make sure you back Petrichor, Honeybee expansion and reprint from Mighty Boards on Kickstarter through the 2nd of November. Do you like it when you do a job well done or when you win a game group? Well, why not commemorate it with a coin? That's right, Congratulations coin and Attaboy coin are on Kickstarter. Help them mint these high quality appreciation coins. I would say go ahead and give it a whirl, and then you don't have to worry about the star stickers that people try to give you. You'll have an actual coin to prove it to the world, or do whatever you'd like with them. But anyways, this project goes through Wednesday the 7th of November. So definitely check out Congratulations coin and Attaboy coin on the Kickstarters. Are you ready for the holiday? Maybe you're not ready for this Halloween. And with this being such a short notice. But we want you to definitely be ready for next Halloween. So does Rabble Game Studios. That's why they brought in you Dead Sprint the game, which is on Kickstarter right now. It's a board game for 2 to 5 players that need to outrun a horde of the undead. Try to stay ahead on your turn before the horde takes theirs. There's 23 more days to get in on the fun of this one as it ends on Thursday, the 15th of November. Dead Sprint is an intense, light action horror board game for 2 to 5 players where everyone is constantly being pursued by a horde of undead in an infested hospital. So definitely check this out and bring it home for Halloween next year. Have you ever been given the task to rewire a home or a house before a house party? Would you like that experience? Well, now you can do it straight on your tabletop. That's right, in Circuit Breaker the board game. A puzzle game of quirky competition and crafty rodents coming to you from Freshwater Game Company. In Circuit Breaker, you're playing a casual strategy game that can be played with up to 4 players. All players attempt to successfully rewire their own house, in fact, in time for a hastily scheduled house party. And they score points by connecting a variety of quirky electrical doodads to their home circuits. Set collection, tile placement, and crafty rodents will be put to use in a fun and cheeky race to be the most happening place on the block. If you haven't gone over to check out Circuit Breaker the board game, you better head on over as there's 23 days to go. This project ends on 15 November. So check out Circuit Breaker board game. What are you doing tomorrow night? Or tomorrow? Or anytime in the future after listening to this? You should be listening to my next episode of Getting Geeky with Gamerlife that's going to come out tomorrow as I sit down with Callum to talk all about Motora. That's right, a new game on Kickstarter. You can find out about it by going to Kickstarter right now and back it if you like what you see. And you can also go ahead and jump on over and listen to my interview with Callum that will be the next interview that comes out. Anyways, Motora is a race against time for 2 to 6 players. You gather the sacred idols scattered across the island and save your tribe before it's too late. You have 25 days to get in on the fun of this one. The art is amazing, and there's lots of different mechanics. I like that about it. Motora is a worker placement resource management game for 2 to 6 players that features dice combat and capture the flag objectives. The gods of Motora are angrily devastating the island. Players must gather the sacred idols they need to survive while keeping their people fed, all while fending off attacks from other tribes. So, you better go ahead and jump on over there and make sure you come back to listen to Getting Geeky with Gamerleaf tomorrow as I speak with Callum, the creator of Motora. We talked about getting next year's horde ready for Halloween. Well, you may want games to play after or before or during trick-or-treating this year. If that be the case, go ahead and jump on over and check out Zoms at zomsgame.com. The Leafs loved it, we played it, and I'll leave in the show notes our link to our preview of this great game. It's fun, it's inspired by the Garbage Pail Kids. If you want to find out more about it, head on over to our interview with the creator, Glendon, or check out our preview, or go to zomsgame.com, all of which will be in the show notes. Now, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Getting Geeky with Gamerleaf. I hope you enjoyed what you heard here. What can we do to do better at our job? Make sure you send us an email at gamerleaf@gamerleafgo.com. Let us know. We love constructive criticism over here. And always come back for more interviews. This week, we've already brought you Cosmic Mirror Games. We just barely talked to Oz about Level 7 Omega Protocol board game. Next, we have Motora. And following day after that, or Friday, depending on how things go down, we have Gnomes at Midnight. Coming to you from Analog Games. I sit down with Richard, the publisher, and also the creator of this great game, the designer, if you will. So, definitely get subscribed to Getting Geeky with Gamerleaf so you never miss another episode. Anyways, it's our least favorite time, your least favorite time. Time for us to get on with our lives, you to get on with yours. In the meantime, I hope you'll get geeky, stay geeky, and bring others into Geekfold. The Gamerleaf out.
Gamerleaf levels up. Tune in next week to see if Gamerleaf's luck holds up.